with companies who, let's say, are just, first starting out with ads, right? And they really don't know how much they need to spend. They may have some level of a budget. They could have a small budget. They could have a big budget. What are some of the first things you kind of tell them or recommend to them they need to do if they're going to start marching down the path of like launching an actual paid campaign?
Yeah, well, your budget, it matters and it doesn't matter, right? So we talk about this all the time, the cost per acquisition, the cost per new lead. So if your budget is $100 or $10,000 for that month, if your ads are set up the same way, your cost per lead will be the same, or your cost per result, cost per click will be the same. You'll just have more, right? If you have $10,000, you'll have more. If it costs $1, you'll have $10,000.
Right.
If you have $100, you'll have 100 leads, which is great. You know what I mean? If your budget is, dependent on, it's smaller, you can have 100 great leads that you really focus on and nurture. You know what I mean? And so I say start with like thinking about your budget. What can you spend? Sometimes like what can you lose, right? Because your first round of ads is testing, and when I'm setting up your ads, I'm like, listen, we're going to test these ads for the first week. Don't think tomorrow we're going to have results that you want to see, because we're learning our audience and we're learning our digital audience for, your brand. And so one thing we were talking about earlier is just ad iteration. I think a lot of times people click, I want to boost this post. You know what I mean? Everyone does that. It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing.
I'm okay with that. Some people have really great results and click-through rates, but you can have higher performing ads if you're more strategic about it. And so one of my biggest recommendations is when you set up your ads, have multiple iterations. I don't launch an ad campaign without 10 iterations. So if you're thinking about this, if you are boosting a post, that's one iteration of that potential ad. But if you have 10 iterations, that could be a great video, a couple different images and pictures, different lead language, same call to action. You'll see the different results. You'll see what images performed the best. Maybe it was the video that performed the best, right? And so that testing lets you know what is resonating with people and how to best optimize your ads.
Yeah, and a lot of the platforms, and I'll speak specifically on like Meta at this point, a lot of the platforms do a really good job of making it easy for you to test different versions and combinations of those ads. And so a lot of, to your point, I love that you said everything about, hey, sometimes we'll stand up 10 different versions. We've also been a part of campaigns where we stood up maybe 80, 90 different versions of a campaign, right? And what it gets down to is, all right, if we have multiple versions of the creative, we have 3 or 4 versions of the actual copy and the call to action that we have, and like whatever that hook is going to be. And then if we're targeting different audiences, right, we can build all that in the platform to where it is automatically figuring out the dynamic nature of what people are responding to. And then that way it can actually optimize your budget, because at the end of the day, if you set your goals right on the front end of the campaign, then what a lot of these platforms will end up doing is that they'll recommend to you to say, hey, this is a combination that seems to be driving the best result.
They want you to keep spending money.
Yeah, they want you to keep spending money.
Yeah.
And you need to look at it from a standpoint of, all right, which combination is going to be able to drive the most bang for my buck? Like if I have $10,000, how can I create 500 leads out of that, as opposed to that same 10,000 generating only 100 leads, right? And that's just an example. That's not the exact thing. Every business industry is different, but a lot of these platforms do a really good job of helping you like test. And then now a lot of them are integrating like the whole AI component of it. So it's making it even easier, which is kind of scary.